Teachers, you are listening to the only podcast in Ontario that keeps you in the game.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, let's do this.
This episode of In the Game is coming to you from Western Survivor Beef Jerky. That's right, Western Survivor Beef Jerky. Get your jerky on at www.westernsurvivor.ca.
Our next guest on In the Game is a two-time Grey Cup champion. He was drafted in the 6th round of the 2013 CFL draft by the Calgary Stampeders. I'm talking about offensive lineman Shane Bergman, who went to the University of Western and attended Waterford District Highchool. Shane, you are in the game. Glad to have you.
Oh, thank you.
Shane, let's start things off by telling folks out there what it is like growing up in a small town like Teeterville, Ontario.
Well, Teeterville is, like you said, it's a farm town. The population is not even on the sign. It's so small. I would say we have one stop sign, and it's all farming community. When I was a young kid, it was full of tobacco and a little bit of ginseng, and now it's mostly ginseng and getting less and less tobacco and tons of other crops, tons of vegetables grown here and stuff. And, when I was a kid, I worked on the farm. I did a lot of land work for my dad. I did all the tobacco work you could do. And, but he left a lot of room for me to play some football too. So that's why I became so good at football, because, if I just was working all the time, I would never be able to play.
So growing up as a farm boy, let's talk maybe Norfolk County tobacco. What was the worst thing for you? The early mornings, the dew on the tobacco when it hits your face, the sand leaves, the tar on your fingernails, or the heat?
Honestly, for me, it wasn't the dew. The dew was nice. It's when I didn't like when I was topping and it got to about noon, 1 o'clock, and then you get sticky and get that tar all over your face, all over your body, all over your fingers. And then at the end of the day, after like a 7-8 hour day of topping, your wrists are just, you can't move them. But you got to go out next day and do it. That's probably the stuff I didn't like the most. My dad was never that mean. I never had to prime too many sand leaves because of my size, because we had the cherry pickers that ran through the rows. So I wasn't too bad there. But I would say that was my worst memory of farming.
Yeah, the sand leaves, I think you got away with that one. I'm a bit of a shorter guy. I was 15 when I did that. I remember we had the 5-man primer, and I believe it got stuck with, the old single rider going down. And when the guy, they would stick me in the seat, fire it up, and away you go. And I'm just trying to keep up with those sand leaves. And meanwhile, it's first thing in the morning and the other leaves are smacking you in the face. So you know what though? It's part of the heritage where we grew up from. And I think it taught you a lesson, or me a lesson, in sports where, if you wanted something, hard work paid off, or you knew what hard work was, or you knew what putting in a long day was. Right.
And you just learn to grind. You push to where you want to get. You see, like in farming, my dad always said, you see the end. So you just push and push and push, and there's an end. And that's what came with football. There wasn't quite an end for me. It was like you push to get to the next level. You're high school and you're competing, but you're pushing yourself to get to that university level. And then when you're at the university level, you just keep pushing yourself, and you see the end of university, and then you got the pro level. So for me, that's what it was. And it really, a long day work on the farm really helped with football for sure.
So when did you know, as a kid or as a youngster, when you thought football was going to be the direction you were going to go? I mean, given your size, meaning the height, you probably played basketball. I would have to assume you did some form of track and field with a shot put or discus or javelin.
Yeah.
So when was it that you realized football is probably the way that I want to go? I want to chase that dream.
Honestly, I didn't play football till late. Like you said, I played a lot of basketball when I was in public school, and I probably didn't play football until I was in grade 8. And I played a little bit in grade 8. I actually went to Wyndham Center Public School, and then he was a teacher at the time. He's the principal there now. Rob Malcolm would come and pick me up from Wyndham Center, and he'd bring me to play junior football for the Waterford Wolves. And, some people saw me and, you should give it you should think about it because of your size. And then I went to a Hamilton Combine, and there was some guys there from Ohio State University, like the Ohio State. And I ran my 40, and I was in grade 10, I believe, at the time. And I ran a 4.98 at 300 pounds in grade 10. And they came up.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I've never ran that fast since. I've gained weight.
It's all the pressure and having the eyes on, right? It's let's do it a 1 over and that's it. Eh?
Yeah, exactly. No, and they came up to me. His name was actually Eric Lichter. He was the head strength and conditioning coach at Ohio State, and he said, "Listen, you need to pursue this." He's like, because you have it. He's like, there's lots of 6'6" guys that are 310 pounds, 320 pounds. That can't move, and I can move, and that's what it needs. You need to be able to move to play professional football. And when he said that, that kind of changed my mind and my dad's mind and my whole family's perspective on football and how you could pursue it and make it a career.
Yeah. So then you make the jump to high school. Was it challenging at all for you?
Honestly, high school as a competitive sport was not that challenging. I had my bad games where I would go against, guys that they say would have the better of me during games, but it wasn't that great of football at the time. I had lots of fun playing it because I was never worried about my job. I was never worried about getting my quarterback hit because I just never did. The hardest part for me is when I was getting older, I developed a little bit of an attitude because, going through these changes in life and I thought I was really good. I was playing Team Ontario and all this stuff, and I developed a little bit of an attitude, and so I headbutted with my coaches a lot. And it's funny now because I can sit down and drink beer with them. I'm like, man, remember how much I was a dick in high school to you guys because they make us do conditioning, and I would hate it, and I'd just give them so much static and all that stuff. But that was probably the hardest part for me was developing that attitude and realizing that you can't be that way towards your coaches, no matter what age group you are. And that was the hurdle I had to battle in high school.
It's weird because, I say the same thing with me with hockey. Some of the coaches, by the time I went to Europe to play semi-pro and then retired, some of the ones that were the hardest coaches on you taught you the most lessons in life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you, at the time, you don't realize what they're doing for you and the good they're doing for you until about 10 years later. You look back on it and say, man, was I ever thankful to have those guys?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's why I can still go, we can go have beers, and I meet up with all my football coaches from high school and stuff, and we still keep in contact because of those reasons. So
you play for Waterford Wolves. Did you guys win a championship through those years that you were there?
We did. My last year, we won the Haldeman Norfolk Bowl. I remember my grade 10 year, we were the best team. Well, regular season, we were the best team. And we played McKinnon Park in the Haldeman Norfolk Bowl, and it was a snowy game, and we lost. And it was just so devastating watching. We had a lot of fourth and fifth year players on the team that year, and it was just devastating, expecting to win and then losing and watching these guys move on with their lives and careers and schooling and not being able to play football. And it was just that was heart-wrenching for me. So it was really nice to be able to get the club its first championship, the first Haldeman Norfolk championship in my last year. I did 5 years, and so it was technically my grade 13.
So that last year, did you have college interest from NCAA Division 1 or 2 programs as well as CIS?
I had a little bit. Honestly, I struggled with – I have some hip problems, like some extra bone growth in my hips, and I've had lots of interest. And every time I go down there and I would get scouted and go down there and do a workout for these guys, I'd get in my stance and it would look funny because I have this extra bone growth in my hips, and they'd just be like, sorry, we can't pursue. Because I had a guy tell me one time, he's like, if I hired you and my head coach saw, he's like, I would get fired just because of your stance. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, you don't want to do that. But, when it came out, I can actually play football. So
is that frustrating a little bit still looking back on it, that maybe it kind of pegged your chances, kind of locked them into a box into one direction where nobody was willing to take that chance on you down south?
It was very frustrating. It's still frustrating to this day because I talk to all my guys that I played professional football with, and even I talked to Brett Jones, who I played with for my first 2 years for Calgary Stampeders. He's been in the NFL for the past 5 years now. And he says, man, he said, you have everything except the bend. And I was like, oh, it's just so heartbreaking to hear. But like, not saying that, like I've had an amazing time in the CFL, and I'm so happy I played and all that stuff. But it's kind of like it did lock me into that box where like I know if I went down south and I had better hips, I could bend and I could have pursued maybe possibly a different career. So.
Yeah, somewhere along the line, you just said about if I had better hips. It's always about the hips, like Happy Gilmore, right? It's all in the hips. It's all in the hips.
Every sport you play, it's all in the hips. If it's hockey, I remember I played hockey, I couldn't skate backwards very well because I had no internal rotation on my femur. So when I tried to get that C going skating backwards, I couldn't really do it. So it would hurt my hockey. It hurt my basketball because I couldn't bend and change directions very well. But then as I grew up, I learned how to, overcome it and actually be able to play really good offensive line with that problem.
So you ended up going to the University of Western.
Yes.
Was there other universities in Canada that had interest in you?
Oh yeah, I went on recruiting trips all over the place. I was out for St. Mary's out east. I went out to BC, to UBC. I went to Simon Fraser. I was heavily recruited by Western, McMaster, Wilfrid Laurier, Waterloo, all the schools here. So I had quite a recruiting experience in Canada, which was quite awesome.
So you made the choice to go to a University of Western.
Yeah.
What was that transformation from Waterford District High School to the University of Western as far as academics and football?
Well, it was completely different change, like football wise. I went in there and, I was probably the highest recruited person on the team at the time. You're going in the rookie, or you're going into camp as a rookie. And I remember going against a one-on-one. He was a fifth-year defensive tackle. His name was Chris Greaves. He actually played offensive line in the CFL for quite a few years, but he played D-line in college. And I remember lining up against him. The D-line coach started chirping at me. He's like, you got nothing. He's like, you're just a little rookie. This guy's been here 5 years. You got nothing. And he came up and he just beat me on. I don't remember what the move was, but he beat me and sacked the quarterback so fast. I was like, holy man, this is a way different game than it is down in Waterford. So, yeah, that was a big change. But academically, it was tough for me because in high school, I didn't really care about school, to be honest. I cared about football and social life. And so I brought that to my university, and it just killed me. Like my first year, I actually had to withdraw from university, and I was out of university for 2 years. I actually went back on my fourth year, and I started all 9 games my fourth year, and then I got drafted off of 9 games. So it was quite
impressive.
Quite the experience.
Yeah, that's not the typical college athlete or university athlete path that they take, right?
No, exactly. But it's actually it was really eye-opening for me, if you actually put your work in the right direction, how much easier it could have been. Because I had to work hard to get back into school because I took online courses from Athabasca, got really good marks in them just because I wanted to play football. And then I had to go back and play. I went back to a year at Western without football, passed all my courses because I wanted to play, and then went back in my fourth year. And then I played, and the rest is history. But it's nice because I actually have a story to tell, and I like going around the schools, and I like talking to kids because I tell them my story, and I'm like, listen, guys, I know there's kids in here that are just like me. If you just put your eggs in a little bit of school basket, you can actually get a lot of things done. And, and don't be like me because I took the hardest route. It's actually amazing that I've accomplished what I've accomplished considering how I acted with my schooling.
So you make the transition out of university. You're drafted, what was it, 6th round in the 2013 CFL draft, if I remember?
Yep.
What was training camp like for you? What do you remember about that first day, or being drafted and then getting to training camp?
Being drafted was amazing because, like I said, I played 9 games in my university career, so I didn't know if I was going to get drafted. And then when I saw my name, that Calgary picked me, I was ecstatic and all that stuff, and I was super excited. The coach called me, and I was super excited to talk to the coaches and all that stuff. And when I got there, I was really nervous because I'd never really moved away. London's an hour away from my house. So, I would come home on weekends and stuff. So moving to Alberta was quite a change for me. And then the football was the biggest change. Like the playbook, the talent, the athleticism. Like if the jump from high school to Western was this big, the jump from Western to CFL is this big. Like it's a completely different football game. I know I was priding myself at Western that no one could ever bull rush me. I was the biggest guy on the team, and no one would ever bull rush me. I remember my first one-on-one there. I went against a guy named DeMonte Bolden, and he bull rushed me, and I fell right over my quarterback. It was a fake quarterback, thank goodness. But I thought he pushed me right over top of him, and I was like, this is a complete new level of football here. And between that and the playbook, you're installing, you're having 2 days, you're at the stadium from 7 in the morning till 10:30 at night, and most of it's learning. And I couldn't keep up, and it was so hard. But, I just focused and tried and spent that first year kind of bouncing around off practice roster and 9-game and all that. And finally in 2014, that's when I got my opportunity to start, and I never looked back.
So 2014 was your first year to start.
Yeah, so technically I didn't start at the beginning. There was I forget what school he came to, but there was this monster of a person. His name is Brandon Craighead. He comes in, and he played at some school in the NCAA, and he got the starting job over me as a rookie. He was really good at football. He was had that crazy mentality that he wants to kill everybody on the football field, and I was slotted in to start, and he took my job. And he played 4 games, and unfortunately for him, he got hurt, and I was the next guy in. And when I got in, I said, there's no way he's taking my spot back.
So the guy was a monster, but correct me if I'm wrong, you're listed at 6'7", 345, correct?
Yeah. So he was about 6'6", probably like 303, like 310, but like athletic, like 6-pack. Like, I don't have a 6-pack. 6-pack, run fast, jump high. I'm like, oh my God, who is this guy?
So the guy was a specimen, not carrying the keg. More or less.
Not carrying the keg. He looked like a linebacker, but offensive lineman.
Awesome. So you jump into the starting role in 2014.
Yeah.
What was that season like for you before the playoffs? Getting that chance to play. I mean, getting to come to Toronto and Hamilton, right? Because the family is local. That's where they're going to see you, right? What was that like?
It was amazing. It was, it was a learning experience because you're playing at a full pace game. I didn't go to Toronto that year. I believe we went to Toronto before I got to start within that 4-game period, but I believe I came to Hamilton that year. And I think we played at McMaster because Tim Hortons field was still being built. So we played them at McMaster. So it was kind of weird because I went back to my university days where really you only have 5,000-6,000 people in the crowd. But my whole family came. I think out of those 5,000 people, almost 1,000 of them were my family. I don't even have that many people in my family, but it was unreal and be able to like experience that with them. So.
Did you know before you were getting into the CFL that you were addicted to jewelry?
Nope. I did not know that.
But you've got some pretty sick rings now, right?
I do. Yeah, I have 2.
And you are addicted to them, right?
I am addicted to them. I actually have them in a safe, and no one can touch them, and except for me. I've worn them. I'm addicted to looking at them. I don't wear them. I wore my 2014 Grey Cup on my wedding day, and then I wore my 2014 Grey Cup ring at the ring ceremony to get my 2018 Grey Cup. And that's the only time I've worn them.
So tell me about that. Tell me about the 2014 playoffs. And just like anybody else, you can't forget it. Even if you win a playoff game in any sport, you're going to remember that. But winning a Stanley Cup, a Super Bowl, NBA championship, or a Grey Cup, that'll blow your mind. And you were still, young, and obviously your first full kind of year in your career. What do you remember about the playoffs and leading up to the Grey Cup and winning the Grey Cup?
I just remember how good our team was. I remember how tight knit we were. We had Bo Levi was he was a 3rd-year player, but a rookie starter that year. And so I kind of went in with him, and, we got Eric Rogers, who came in as a rookie that year. And then we had a guy running the rock, John Cornish. And it was just like, to play for John Cornish, that was something else. And, when we were going through, we played, the first game we would have been the Western Final against Edmonton. And Edmonton has always had a great D-line. And, playing against them, and I don't think we let any sacks go. And John Cornish went for like this huge 75-yard touchdown run on a screen play, and it was just unbelievable. I remember that Edmonton always, when they got a sack, they would always do this barrel roll, and they would come up and hit their chests and all this stuff. And I remember we were on the 3-yard line, and I was talking to the guys. I'm like, yo, if we get this touchdown, we're going to barrel roll in the end zone. And we got it, and we barrel rolled, and not one camera picked it up. So I know they might never believe me, but we barrel rolled, and we took the life right out of them. And that was a pretty cool experience. The Grey Cup, on the other hand, when we won, that was the best experience. But like leading up to the win, when we thought we lost, and there was that block from behind and on that last kickoff return, it was, your heart is in your throat. It's hard. It was a way different experience than, just playing on winning. So it was, but when we won, it was, it was almost like a sigh of relief because we did win, and that penalty brought it back and we happened to win. But like for me, going through the battle with my hips and people saying I wasn't quite good enough, and finally I was a full-time starter, made it, won a Grey Cup, I just let loose. Like I couldn't, like I was crying, and it was just an unbelievable experience because I've never experienced something quite like that before.
So was your family there for that day? I assume they had to have been, right? I mean, how many were actually there?
Yeah, it was my Opa, so my mom's dad, my Opa, and my dad's mom, grandma, and my mom and dad, my brother, and my girlfriend. She's my fiance. She's my wife now, but yeah, that's all the people that were there. My grandma actually got to come to that, and which was super awesome. But she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer soon after, and we won the Grey Cup. And I actually had the Grey Cup come to my house in April, and she passed away about 2 weeks after that. And no, maybe before that, but it was quite an experience that she got to see me win a Grey Cup. Everything happens for a reason. She was meant to watch me win a Grey Cup. That's for sure.
Yeah, I hear there's always those special moments that usually almost a lot of athletes that play the game long enough come through some tough times, some perseverance, and a big game, right? It's funny when you mentioned your quarterback, and his name is
Bo Levi Mitchell.
Have you watched the movie Draft Day?
I have not. No.
Okay, well, you're missing out. That's the one. That's the one you're missing out. It's about the football draft, and the quarterback's name in there is Bo Callahan.
Okay.
So the name always, when I hear Bo Levi, right? It's around that same time period of Calgary and the movie coming out, and it's Kevin Costner's in it. It's a really good movie, man. You're missing out. It's based on like a 24 to 48 hour clock around the NFL draft, and you need to watch it. But yeah, you're when I hear you say Bo, I'm like, there's that name again. It's like Bo Callahan, Bo Levi, quarterbacks, and they both are quarterbacks. So must be a popular quarterback. Is he American? Is Bo American?
Yeah, he's American. He's from Texas. Yeah,
it's an American name, right? So.
For sure.
So
he was named after Bo Jackson. His mom and dad were big baseball fans.
There you go. Right on.
Yeah.
So you broke the Grey Cup, didn't you?
It was loose, but I was the one who broke it. It was loose. The top was all wiggly, and I still had to lift it up above my head, and it broke.
Was that 2014 or was that?
That was 2014. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually,
so you held it above your head. It was loose.
Yeah.
And it fell apart.
And my dad Snapshot the picture right at the right time. I believe you shared that. My mom's howling in my face. I can't believe it just happened. I broke the Grey Cup, but it was quick.
Anywhere else they'd be like, oh, right? Look what they just. But in Norfolk County, it's like, that's how you put Norfolk County on the map, right?
Yeah, exactly. I had to do something.
So that whole championship was awesome. I'm sure it was probably the highlight of your life. What was the after party like for you? What were some of the things that you did in 2014 with the cup when you brought it home? Were there some special things like the fire hall? I believe. Yep. You probably went there. What were some of the experiences you had?
Oh, it was unreal. So I brought the Grey Cup and we brought it to the fire hall. We went on CD 98.9 and we did advertising for it. And the fire hall put on a ton of food. All the firemen did a outstanding job and organized it all. And and they put on food for people and all that stuff. And my dad was kind of worried. He was saying, I don't know if people are going to come and all this stuff. And I remember my grandpa was in Norview at the time, which was a nursing home. And I brought the Grey Cup to him, and he was a fireman. He was a fire chief at Teeterville before he retired. And so I rode in on a fire truck. I got special permission, so I rode in on a fire truck, and then he was already outside. We got Norview to bring him outside, and I got to bring that out to him. And so we come off fire truck, and he's just so happy to see me. So happy there's a fire truck there, and then the Grey Cup. So that was pretty outstanding. And then we came back, and we didn't know what to expect when we got to the fire hall. And we got there, and there was cars lined up down the road as far as you can see, people everywhere. And we made a lineup, and I signed autographs and talked to people, shook hands, kissed babies, and it's a long time. I'm not going to lie, but I really enjoy it. But I think about 700-800 people came through, and it was like from like 10 o'clock until about 3:30, 4 o'clock. I was like shaking hands and then signing autographs for people, and so people could hold the Grey Cup.
See, that story you're telling me, and you're talking about your father, and I don't know if anybody's going to come. That's humble people. Right? Like that's Norfolk County, that's farm country, that's humble, right? Yeah. But you also know, because you're on the other side of it and you see it, and I know it with a lot of the guys that I've been around with the Stanley Cup and stuff. Norfolk County takes pride in their people.
Oh, they do. Sure.
They do, right? And their accomplishment. And again, you guys being humble, that's, you're like your father was worried, but deep down, you knew, like, this is something special for Norfolk County. It doesn't happen. How often, all the Stanley Cups have come through. Yeah. But how many Grey Cups have come through Norfolk County? Not a lot, right?
2 now.
Yeah, 2. And who brought them?
Yeah, exactly.
Same guy, right? I mean, we need a 3-peat. Come on, man, right?
I know. I'm trying.
so I gotta have this little discussion here. So I want to know how bad you feel for these people. With my agency and my company, I have a lawyer in town here. Her name's Melissa Bowen. Her husband's name is Jeremy Bowen. They're from out west, but they live in Woodstock now. They are Saskatchewan Roughrider fans. Oh. Terrible, eh? Like, they even put their watermelons on their kids' heads and stuff and dress them in green.
Oh yeah, true fans.
It's embarrassing, eh?
Yeah, a little. It's a little embarrassing.
Would you, right? And you know what? I can say that because they're gonna listen, and it's my time. It's my time now to take a shot, right? Do you have any words of maybe optimism or hope for those fans like them of the Rough Riders? Hang in there, maybe.
Yeah, hang in there. You know what? They had the MVP runner-up. Fajardo might do some good things. If
they've got good farmland and I think fishing out there, don't they?
Yeah, I don't know about fishing. I don't know how many lakes they have, but they have great farmland. It's very flat.
Good hunting. Lots of good hunting.
You can go on a long bike ride without much hills. That'd be nice.
See, there is a lot of positive things about Saskatchewan.
Yeah, exactly.
You can drive forever and see nothing.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, you can do that in Norfolk County, but I got to take my pop shot at them. I mean, they're good friends. I figured they knew you were coming on. You've got 2 Grey Cups and 2 Grey Cup rings.
Yeah.
So that's my shot at them. And also my pops was for a bit spent times with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So, that was like whatever, late 60s, early 70s. So I kind of take my pop shots at my partner and her husband every time I can about real football teams in the CFL.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move on again back to the CFL. So how special is it to play in a league that was around or was founded before the NFL? It has its own set of rules. It has its own landscape, and it's a very small market. Don't get me wrong. The NFL is awesome, and it's a big league, and yes, the players make more. I mean, it's understandable because of the size of the market and everything else. But how special is it, like, to play for the CFL in its own unique league with its own unique set of rules?
It's really special, watching. Actually, it was the 95 Grey Cup team that came up and they visited us, and that was when Doug Flutie won the Grey Cup for Calgary Stampeders. And watching them, and they come up and they shared their traditions with us, and it was a 25-year anniversary, I think, of their Grey Cup win. And I got to hang out with all these guys and that played back in the 90s and stuff, and it was a really cool experience. That's when I truly was like, wow, this is way bigger than this team. This is a sport that's been around for over 100 years. And they were telling, because we play as an offensive line every game day. Well, the day before the game, we play a game of bocce ball. And so the O-line for that 95 Grey Cup team came up. They're like, you guys still play bocce ball? Yes, we do. Do you want to play? It was so fun. We played bocce ball against them, and I think they whooped our butts. they had some skills behind them. But it's really cool looking at that Grey Cup trophy and reading all of the teams that have won. And the Grey Cup wasn't played. It says Grey Cup not played during war times, but they put a plaque on there for that. It's just really cool being such a part of Canadian history.
Stay tuned for episode 7, part 2 with Shane Bergman, coming soon.